In a world where words can ignite fires and opinions can shift the tides of public discourse, a heated exchange unfolded on live television that left viewers stunned. J.D. Vance, a rising political figure and author, found himself face to face with an arrogant journalist who thought he could corner him with a snide remark. What happened next was a masterclass in rhetoric that not only silenced the studio but also sparked a nationwide conversation. If you want to witness how one man's poise can dismantle arrogance, share and subscribe to follow this gripping encounter that had everyone talking. The studio lights flickered on, illuminating the set where J.D. Vance sat, calm and collected, ready to discuss the pressing issues of the day. Across from him, the journalist, known for his sharp tongue and biting commentary, leaned forward with a smirk. "So, J.D., are you now just another lapdog for Trump?" he sneered, his tone dripping with condescension. The audience held its breath, sensing the tension in the air. Vance, however, remained unfazed, his eyes steady and his demeanour unshaken. With a slight smile, Vance leaned into the microphone, his voice steady and clear. "You know, it's interesting you say that," he began, "because it seems like you're more interested in sensationalism than in understanding the real issues facing our country." The journalist's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his face as Vance continued. "Our people are tired of the same old narratives. They want solutions, not just sound bites." The studio audience shifted in their seats, intrigued by Vance's confident rebuttal. As the journalist attempted to regain control of the conversation, Vance pressed on, unrelenting. "You see, it's easy to throw around labels and insults, but what does that accomplish? It doesn't help the working-class families struggling to make ends meet. It doesn't address the real concerns of Americans who feel left behind." The journalist, now visibly flustered, tried to interrupt, but Vance raised a hand, commanding attention. "Let's talk about the issues, not the personalities. That's what matters." The studio fell silent, the weight of Vance's words hanging in the air. The journalist, caught off guard, struggled to formulate a response. Vance had turned the tables, shifting the focus from personal attacks to substantive dialogue. "If you want to have a real conversation, let's discuss the policies that impact people's lives," he said, his tone firm yet respectful. The audience erupted in applause, a clear indication that they were ready for a change in the narrative. As the segment drew to a close, the journalist attempted one last jab, but Vance was ready. "You can call me whatever you like, but I'm here to represent the voices that often go unheard. That's my priority." With that, the show ended, leaving viewers buzzing with excitement and admiration for Vance's poise under pressure. Stay tuned for part 2, where the fallout from this exchange reverberates through social media and the political landscape. Like, share, and subscribe to witness how one moment can reshape public perception and challenge the status quo. The aftermath of J.D. Vance's powerful rebuttal rippled through social media like wildfire. Clips of the exchange quickly went viral, with hashtags like #VanceSchoolsJournalist trending across platforms. Viewers were captivated by the way Vance had dismantled the journalist's arrogance, and many praised him for shifting the conversation back to the issues that truly mattered. As the dust settled, the political landscape began to shift, and Vance found himself at the center of a growing movement that sought to challenge the mainstream media narrative. In the days following the broadcast, Vance's phone buzzed incessantly with messages from supporters and political allies. They hailed him as a champion of the people, someone willing to stand up against the media elite who often prioritized sensationalism over substance. "You really showed him, J.D.," one message read. "It's about time someone called out the arrogance in the media." Vance felt a mix of pride and responsibility. He knew that this moment was more than just a personal victory. It was a chance to amplify the voices of those who felt marginalized. Meanwhile, the journalist who had faced off against Vance was not taking the defeat lightly. In the days that followed, he appeared on various talk shows, attempting to downplay the incident and frame it as a mere misunderstanding. But the public wasn't buying it. Clips of Vance's calm yet assertive demeanor continued to circulate. and the journalist's attempts to regain control of the narrative only seemed to backfire. Viewers were increasingly frustrated with the media's tendency to focus on personalities rather than policies, and Vance's message resonated deeply. As Vance prepared for his next public appearance, he knew he had to capitalize on the momentum. He began crafting speeches that addressed the core issues affecting everyday Americans: job security, healthcare, and education. He wanted to ensure that his message was clear. It wasn't about him or his political affiliations. It was about the people he aimed to serve. With each speech, he emphasized the importance of listening to constituents and engaging in meaningful dialogue, rather than resorting to the divisive tactics often employed by the media. The turning point came when Vance was invited to speak at a town hall meeting in a small community that had been struggling economically. As he stood before a crowd of concerned citizens, he felt the weight of their expectations. "I'm not here to be a lapdog for anyone," he declared, echoing the sentiment that had resonated so strongly during his televised confrontation. "I'm here to listen to you, to understand your struggles, and to fight for the solutions we need." The audience erupted in applause, and Vance could see the hope in their eyes. As the town hall concluded, Vance was approached by several attendees who expressed their gratitude for his willingness to engage with them. "You're different," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "You actually care about us." In that moment, Vance realized that the impact of his words extended far beyond the studio. They had the power to inspire change and foster a sense of community. Stay tuned for part 3, where Vance's rising popularity begins to attract both supporters and critics, and the media's response to his newfound influence takes an unexpected turn. Like, share, and subscribe to follow this unfolding story of resilience, integrity, and the fight for a better future. As J.D. Vance's popularity surged, so did the scrutiny from both supporters and critics. The media, once quick to dismiss him as just another political figure, now found themselves grappling with the reality that he was resonating with a significant portion of the American public. His town hall meetings were packed, and social media buzzed with discussions about his policies and vision for the future. However, with this newfound influence came a wave of criticism, particularly from those who had previously underestimated him. In the weeks following the town hall, Vance was invited to appear on several high-profile news programs. While many hosts praised his ability to connect with everyday Americans, others were less forgiving. One prominent journalist, known for his sharp critiques, invited Vance onto his show, eager to challenge him on his recent rise. "So, J.D., do you think you're really representing the people, or are you just riding the coattails of a populist wave?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. Vance, now seasoned by his previous encounter, responded with confidence. "I'm not here to ride any wave. I'm here to listen to the concerns of my constituents and advocate for real solutions. The people I meet every day are tired of the same old political games." The journalist pressed on, attempting to corner Vance with loaded questions, but Vance remained composed, deftly steering the conversation back to the issues that mattered most. As the interview progressed, it became clear that Vance was not just a flash in the pan. He was a formidable presence in the political arena. His ability to articulate the struggles of working-class Americans and his commitment to addressing their needs began to shift the narrative. Viewers who had tuned in to see a potential train wreck found themselves impressed by Vance's poise and clarity. The journalist, frustrated by his inability to rattle Vance, ended the segment with a dismissive remark, but the damage was done. Vance had once again proven his mettle. Meanwhile, Vance's supporters rallied around him, eager to amplify his message. Grassroots organizations began to form, focused on issues like job creation, healthcare reform, and education access. Vance found himself at the helm of a movement that sought to challenge the status quo and bring about real change. He embraced this role, traveling across the country to meet with communities, listening to their stories, and sharing his vision for a brighter future. However, not everyone was pleased with Vance's rise. Critics within the media and political establishment began to label him as a populist and a demagogue, attempting to undermine his credibility. They painted him as a figure who thrived on division rather than unity, hoping to sway public opinion against him. But Vance remained undeterred, recognizing that the more they attacked him, the more he resonated with those who felt ignored by traditional politics. In a pivotal moment, Vance decided to address the criticism head-on. During a live-streamed Q&A session, he opened the floor to questions from supporters and detractors alike. "I know some of you may not agree with me," he said, looking directly into the camera. But I want to hear your concerns. Let's have a real conversation about what matters." The response was overwhelming, with thousands tuning in to engage in a dialogue that transcended partisan lines. As Vance continued to navigate the complexities of his newfound influence, he remained focused on his mission: to be a voice for the voiceless and to challenge the narratives that had long dominated the political landscape. The journey was far from over, and he knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. Stay tuned for Part 4, where Vance faces a critical turning point that tests his resolve and commitment to his principles. Like, share, and subscribe to follow this compelling story of courage, integrity, and the fight for a better tomorrow. As J.D. Vance's movement gained momentum, the stakes grew higher. With each town hall meeting and media appearance, he was not only advocating for the issues that mattered to his constituents, but also becoming a target for those who felt threatened by his rising influence. The political establishment, sensing a shift in the landscape, began to mobilize against him. Vance was about to face a critical turning point that would test his resolve and commitment to his principles. One evening, Vance received an unexpected invitation to a high-profile political gala in Washington, D.C. It was an opportunity to network with influential figures and potentially gain support for his initiatives. However, he was acutely aware that attending such an event could also expose him to the very establishment he had been critiquing. After much deliberation, he decided to attend, believing that engaging with a broader audience could amplify his message. As he entered the lavish venue, Vance felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The room was filled with politicians, lobbyists, and media personalities, all mingling and exchanging pleasantries. He was approached by several prominent figures who expressed their admiration for his recent rise. Yet beneath the surface he could sense the skepticism. "You're quite the sensation, J.D., one seasoned senator remarked, a hint of condescension in his voice. "Just remember, it's a long game," and D.C. Vance smiled politely but felt the weight of the senator's words. He knew that the political landscape was fraught with compromises and backroom deals, and he was determined not to lose sight of his mission. As the evening progressed, he engaged in conversations about policy and reform, but he also encountered those who sought to undermine him. A well-known journalist approached him, eager to provoke a reaction. "So, J.D., how does it feel to be the darling of the populist movement? Are you worried about being used as a pawn?" Vance took a deep breath, recalling the lessons he had learned from his previous encounters. "I'm not here to be anyone's pawn," he replied firmly. "I'm here to represent the people who feel unheard and overlooked. If that makes me a populist, then so be it." The journalist, taken aback by Vance's confidence, attempted to press further, but Vance deftly redirected the conversation back to the issues at hand. As the night wore on, Vance found himself in a conversation with a group of grassroots activists who had travelled to the gala to advocate for change. They shared their stories of struggle and resilience, and Vance listened intently, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "This is why I'm here," he thought, "to amplify your voices and fight for the change we need." However, the evening took a dramatic turn when a prominent political figure, known for his aggressive tactics, publicly challenged Vance during a panel discussion. "You think you can just waltz in here and change everything? This is how politics works, and you're in over your head," he sneered. The room fell silent, tension palpable as all eyes turned to Vance. In that moment, Vance felt the weight of the challenge before him. He could either back down or stand firm in his convictions. Drawing on the strength he had cultivated through his journey, he responded with clarity and conviction. "I'm not here to play by the old rules. The people I represent are tired of the same old politics that prioritize power over progress. We need a new approach, one that puts people first." The audience erupted in applause, and Vance could see the shift in energy. He had not only defended his position, but had also inspired those around him to believe in the possibility of change. As he left the gala that night, he felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face whatever came next. Stay tuned for part 5, where Vance's journey culminates in a pivotal moment that could redefine his political career and the future of his movement. Like, share, and subscribe to witness the final chapter of this compelling story of resilience, integrity, and the fight for a better tomorrow. As J.D. Vance continued to navigate the turbulent waters of politics, the momentum of his movement reached a critical juncture. The grassroots support he had cultivated was palpable, and the issues he championed resonated deeply with a growing number of Americans. However, with increased visibility came heightened scrutiny, and Vance knew that the next few weeks would be pivotal for his political future. The turning point arrived when Vance was invited to participate in a nationally televised debate against several established politicians. This was his chance to solidify his position as a serious contender in the political arena. As he prepared for the debate, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment, the challenges he had faced, the people he had met, and the stories that had fueled his passion for change. On the night of the debate, the atmosphere was electric. Vance took the stage, flanked by seasoned politicians who had spent years in the system. The moderator opened the floor with questions about pressing issues, and Vance seized the opportunity to articulate his vision. "We need to prioritize the needs of working-class families," he stated emphatically. "It's time to move beyond partisan bickering and focus on real solutions that uplift our communities." As the debate progressed, Vance faced tough questions and aggressive attacks from his opponents. One seasoned politician attempted to undermine his credibility, saying, "You're just a populist who doesn't understand the complexities of governance." You can't just promise change without a plan. The audience held its breath, waiting to see how Vance would respond. Drawing on his experiences and the stories of the people he had met, Vance replied, "I may not have been in politics for decades, but I've listened to the voices of those who've been ignored for far too long. They don't want more complexity. They want action. They want leaders who will fight for them, not for special interests." The audience erupted in applause, and Vance could feel the energy shift in his favour. As the debate continued, Vance's opponents grew increasingly frustrated. They attempted to label him as a mere populist, but he skillfully redirected the conversation back to the issues that mattered most. "This isn't about labels, it's about people's lives. We need to invest in education, healthcare, and job creation. That's what will truly make a difference." By the end of the debate, it was clear that Vance had not only held his ground, but had also emerged as a formidable force. The post-debate analysis was overwhelmingly positive, with pundits acknowledging his ability to connect with the audience and articulate a vision for the future. Social media buzzed with excitement, and supporters rallied around him, eager to amplify his message. In the days that followed, Vance's campaign gained unprecedented traction. Donations poured in, and volunteers flocked to support his cause. He was no longer just a rising star. He was a legitimate contender in the political landscape. As he travelled across the country, meeting with constituents and sharing his vision, he felt a sense of purpose that fueled his determination. However, the political establishment was not ready to concede defeat. As Vance's popularity grew, so did the attacks against him. Negative ads began to flood the airwaves, attempting to paint him as a radical. But Vance remained undeterred, focusing on his message and the people he aimed to serve. "The more they attack me, the more I know I'm on the right path," he told his supporters. As the election approached, Vance stood at a crossroads. He could either succumb to the pressures of the establishment or continue to fight for the values he believed in. With the support of his grassroots movement behind him, he chose the latter. "This is about more than just winning an election. It's about creating a future where every voice is heard," he declared at a rally, igniting a fire in the hearts of those who gathered. In the end, Vance's journey was not just about politics. It was about the power of resilience, integrity, and the unwavering belief that change is possible. As he looked out at the crowd of supporters, he knew that together they were forging a new path, one that prioritized the needs of the people over the interests of the powerful. Stay tuned for what comes next in Vance's journey as the fight for a better tomorrow continues. Like, share, and subscribe to follow the ongoing story of courage, determination, and the relentless pursuit of a brighter future for all.